Introduction. Long before the rendition of the Bible known as the Message was complete, Yu진피터슨 translated a portion of the Bible for members of his congregation so they could grasp the powerful relevance of God's message. Eugene knew the life-changing potential of interacting with the scriptures, but he also knew that unless people understood what they were reading by hearing it in a way that connected it to their lives, change wouldn't take place. That's the spirit behind my first message, a children's devotional Bible for kids between the age of 4 and 8, their parents, grandparents, and friends.
My first message, the Old Testament, written by Eugene H. Peterson. Genesis 1 and 2, creation of heaven and earth. First, this. God created the heavens and earth, all you see, all you don't see. Earth was a dark soup of nothing, a bottomless emptiness. God's Spirit watched like a bird above the deep, dark water. God spoke, "Light," and light appeared. God saw that light was good. God named the light day. He named the dark night. It was evening, and it was morning. Day 1. God spoke, "Sky," and there it was. He named sky the heavens. It was evening, and it was morning. Day 2. God spoke, "Land appear," and there it was. God named the land earth. He named the pooled water ocean. God saw that it was good. God spoke, "Earth, grow all varieties of green plants, every sort of fruit tree." And there it was. God saw that it was good. It was evening. It was morning. Day 3. God spoke, "Lights, come out, shine in heaven's sky, separate day from night." And there it was. God made 2 big lights, the larger to take charge of day, the smaller to be in charge of night. And he made the stars. God saw that it was good. It was evening. It was morning. Day 4. God spoke, "Ocean, fill with fish and all sea life. Birds, fly through the sky over earth." God saw that it was good. God blessed them. "Fish in the waters, have children. Birds in the sky, have children." It was evening. It was morning. Day 5. God spoke, "Earth, become alive with every kind of life." And there it was, wild animals of every kind, cattle of all kinds, every sort of reptile and bug. God saw that it was good. God spoke, "Let us make people to reflect our image, so they can take care of the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and, yes, earth itself." God created people in his image, reflecting his nature. He created them male and female. God blessed them. "Have children. Take care of every living thing on the earth." Then God said, "I've given you every sort of plant and fruit tree for food. To everything that moves and breathes, I give whatever grows out of the ground for food." And there it was. God looked over everything he had made. It was so good, so very good. It was evening. It was morning. Day 6. Heaven and earth were finished, down to the last detail. By the 7th day, God had finished his work. He rested on the 7th day. He rested from all his work. God blessed the 7th day. He made it a holy day, because on that day he rested from his work. All the creating God.
Genesis 2. Adam and Eve. At the time God made earth and heaven, God formed man out of dirt from the ground, and blew into his nose the breath of life. The man became alive, a living soul. Then God planted a garden in Eden. God made all kinds of trees grow, trees beautiful to look at and good to eat. The tree of life was in the middle of the garden, also the tree of knowing good and evil. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there divides into 4 rivers. God took the man and set him down in the Garden of Eden to work the ground and keep it in order. God commanded the man, "You can eat from any tree in the garden, except from the tree of knowing good and evil. Don't eat from it. The moment you eat from that tree, you're dead." God said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make him a helper, a partner." So God formed from the dirt of the ground all the animals of the field and all the birds of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. Whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. The man named the cattle, named the birds of the air, named the wild animals, but he didn't find a partner. God put the man into a deep sleep. As he slept, he removed one of his ribs, and God then used the rib to make woman, and brought her to the man. The man said, "Finally, my partner, name her woman, for she was made from my flesh and bones." That's why a man leaves his father and mother and embraces his wife. They become one flesh. The 2 of them, the man and his wife, were naked, but they did not feel ashamed.
Genesis 3. Sin and the Fall. The serpent was clever, more clever than any wild animal God had made. He spoke to the woman. "Do I understand that God told you not to eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "Not at all. It's only the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'Don't eat from it. Don't even touch it, or you'll die.'" The serpent told the woman, "You won't die. God knows that the moment you eat from that tree, you'll be just like God, knowing everything, from good to evil." When the woman saw that the tree looked like good eating and realized she'd know everything, she took and ate the fruit, and then gave some to her husband, and he ate. Immediately the 2 of them saw themselves naked. They sewed fig leaves together as makeshift clothes for themselves. When they heard the sound of God strolling in the garden in the evening breeze, the man and his wife hid in the trees of the garden, hid from God. God called to the man, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid." God said, "Who told you you were naked? Did you eat from that tree I told you not to eat from?" The man said, The woman you gave me as my partner, she gave me fruit from the tree, and, yes, I ate it." God said to the woman, "What is this that you've done?" "The serpent tricked me," she said, "and I ate." God told the serpent, "Because you've done this, you're cursed. Cursed beyond all cattle and wild animals. Cursed to slink on your belly and eat dirt all your life. There'll be trouble between you and the woman, between your children and hers. He'll wound your head. You'll wound his heel." He told the woman, "Now you'll give birth to your babies in pain. And pleasing your husband will be painful too." He told the man, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from, don't eat from this tree. The very ground is cursed because of you. Getting food from the ground will be as painful as having babies is for your wife. You'll be working in pain all your life long. The ground will sprout thorns and weeds. You'll get your food the hard way, sweating in the fields, until you return to that ground you started from, dead and buried." The man, known as Adam, named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all the living. God made leather clothing for Adam and his wife and dressed them. God said, "The man has become like one of us, capable of knowing everything from good to evil. What if he now should reach out and take fruit from the tree of life and eat and live forever? Never! This cannot happen." So God threw them out of the Garden of Eden and sent them to work the ground, the same dirt out of which they'd been made. He stationed angel cherubim and a revolving sword of fire east of the garden, guarding the path to the tree of life.
Genesis 6-9. The Flood. This is the story of Noah. Noah was a good man, trusted by his neighbors. Noah walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. As far as God was concerned, the earth had become a very bad place. There was violence everywhere. God said to Noah, "It's all over. The evil is everywhere. I'm making a clean sweep. Build yourself a ship from teak wood. Make rooms in it. Make it long and wide and high. Build a roof for it and put in a window. Put in a door on the side and make 3 decks, lower, middle, and upper. I'm going to bring a flood on the earth that will destroy everything alive under heaven. But I'm going to create a covenant with you. You'll board the ship, you and your family. Take 2 of each living creature, a male and a female, so as to save their lives along with yours. Also get all the food you'll need and store it up for you and them." Noah did everything God commanded him to do. Next, God said to Noah, "Out of everyone alive today, you're different. Take clean animals, unclean animals, and every kind of bird. In just 7 days, I will dump rain on earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah did everything God commanded him. One day, in the 600th year of Noah's life, the underground springs and the windows of heaven were thrown open. That's the day Noah and his family boarded the ship, and with them every kind of wild and domestic animal, clean and unclean. They came to Noah and to the ship in pairs. Then God shut the door behind them. The flood continued 40 days and the waters rose and lifted the ship high over the earth. The flood got worse until all the highest mountains were covered. God wiped out every living creature. Only Noah and his company on the ship lived. Then God caused the wind to blow, and the floodwaters began to go down. In the 7th month, the ship landed on the Ararat Mountains. After 40 days, Noah opened the window. He sent out a dove, but he couldn't find a place to perch. Noah reached out, caught it, and brought it back into the ship. He waited 7 more days and sent out the dove again. It came back in the evening with a freshly picked olive leaf in its beak. Noah knew that the flood was about finished. In the 601st year of Noah's life, the flood had dried up. Noah opened the hatch of the ship and saw dry ground. God spoke to Noah, "Leave the ship, you and your family, and take all the animals with you so they can have children and live on the earth. I'm setting up my covenant with you, including your children who will come after you, along with everything alive around you. I'm putting my rainbow in the clouds, a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. From now on, when I form a cloud over the earth and the rainbow appears in the cloud, I'll remember my covenant between me and you and everything living, that never again will floodwaters destroy all life."
Genesis 25. Jacob and Esau. This is the family tree of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. She was the sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed hard to God for his wife because she could not have children. God answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant. But the children tumbled and kicked inside her so much that she said, "If this is the way it's going to be, why go on living?" She went to God to find out what was going on. God told her, "2 nations are in your belly, 2 peoples butting heads while still in your body. 1 people will overpower the other, and the older will serve the younger." When her time to give birth came, sure enough, there were twins in her belly. The first came out reddish, as if snugly wrapped in a hairy blanket. They named him Esau, hairy. His brother followed. His fist clutched tight to Esau's heel. They named him Jacob, heel. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. The boys grew up. Esau became an expert hunter, an outdoorsman. Jacob was a quiet man, preferring life indoors among the tents. Isaac loved Esau because he loved to eat the animals he hunted, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One day Jacob was cooking a stew. Esau came in from the field, starved. Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stew. I'm starved." That's how he came to be called Edom, red. Jacob said, "Make me a trade, my stew for your rights as the firstborn." Esau said, "I'm starving. What good is a birthright if I'm dead?" Jacob said, "First, promise me." And he did it. With the promise, Esau traded away his rights as the firstborn. Jacob gave him bread and the red stew. He ate and drank, got up and left. That's how Esau shrugged off his rights as the firstborn.
Genesis 37, Joseph the Dreamer.
Genesis 37. Joseph the Dreamer. When Jacob's son Joseph was 17 years old, he helped out his brothers in herding the animal flocks. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, and he made him a fancy coat. When his brothers realized that their father loved him more than them, they grew to hate Joseph. They wouldn't even speak to him. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said, "Listen to this dream I had. We were all out in the field gathering bundles of wheat. All of a sudden, my bundle stood straight up, and your bundle circled around it and bowed down to mine." His brothers said, "So, you're going to rule us? You're going to boss us around?" And they hated him more than ever because of his dreams and the way he talked. He had another dream and told this one also to his brothers. "I dreamed another dream. The sun and moon and 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told it to his father and brothers, his father scolded him. "What's with all this dreaming? Am I and your mother and your brothers all supposed to bow down to you?" Now his brothers were really jealous, but his father wondered to himself about the whole business. Joseph's brothers had gone off to Shechem, where they were pasturing their father's flocks. Jacob said to Joseph, "Your brothers are with flocks in Shechem. Come, I want to send you to them." Joseph said, "I'm ready." Jacob said, "Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing, and bring me back a report." He sent him off from the valley of Hebron to Shechem. The brothers spotted him off in the distance. By the time he got to them, they had cooked up a plot to kill him. The brothers were saying, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these old wells. We can say that a vicious animal ate him up. We'll see what his dreams amount to." Reuben, the oldest brother, heard the others talking and stepped in to save Joseph. "We're not going to kill him. No murder. Go ahead and throw him in this well out here in the wild, but don't hurt him." Reuben planned to go back later and get him out and take him back to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they ripped off the fancy coat he was wearing, grabbed him, and threw him into a well. There wasn't any water in the well. Then the brothers sat down to eat their supper. Looking up, they saw a caravan of traders on their way from Gilead, their camels loaded with spices, ointments, and perfumes to sell in Egypt. Judah said, "Brothers, what are we going to get out of killing our brother and concealing the evidence? Let's sell him to the traders, but let's not kill him. He is, after all, our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. His brothers pulled Joseph out of the well and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the traders who took Joseph with them down to Egypt. Later, Reuben came back and went to the well. No Joseph. He ripped his clothes in despair. Beside himself, he went to his brothers. "The boy's gone. What am I going to do?" The brothers took Joseph's coat, killed a goat, and dipped the coat in the blood. They took the fancy coat back to their father and said, "We found this. Look it over. Do you think this is your son's coat?" Jacob recognized it at once. "My son's coat. A wild animal has eaten him. My Joseph, torn limb from limb." Jacob tore his clothes in grief, dressed in rough burlap, and mourned his son a long, long time. His sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused their comfort. "I'll go to the grave mourning my son." his father wept for him. In Egypt, the traders sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, manager of his household affairs.
Genesis 40-43. Joseph and the famine.
Genesis 42 and 43. Joseph and the famine. Part 1. The land of Canaan was hit hard by famine. 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to Egypt to get food, but Jacob didn't send Benjamin with them. He was afraid that something bad might happen to him. Joseph was running the country, giving out food to all the people. When Joseph's brothers arrived, he said, "Where do you come from?" "From Canaan," they said. "We've come to buy food." Joseph knew who they were, but they didn't know who he was. Joseph, remembering the dreams he had dreamed of them, said, "You're spies." "No, we've only come to buy food." He said, "No, you're spies." They said, "There were 12 of us brothers, sons of the same father, in the country of Canaan. The youngest is with our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said, "This is how I'll test you. You're not going to leave this place until your younger brother comes here." Then he threw them into jail for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph spoke to them. "Do this and you'll live. I'm a God-fearing man. If you're as honest as you say you are, one of your brothers will stay here in jail while the rest of you take the food back to your hungry families. Bring your youngest brother back to me, and not one of you will die." They agreed. Joseph took Simon and made a prisoner of him. Then Joseph ordered that their sacks be filled with grain, that their money be put back in each sack, and that they be given food for the road. That was all done for them. They loaded their food supplies on their donkeys and set off. That night, one of them opened his sack. He called out to his brothers, "My money has been returned." They were puzzled and frightened. "What's God doing to us?" When they got back to their father, Jacob, back in the land of Canaan, they told him everything that had happened. As they were emptying their food sacks, each man found his purse of money. Their father said to them, "Joseph's gone, Simon's gone, and now you want to take Benjamin? My son will not go. He is all I have left." The famine got worse. Their father said, "Go back and get some more food." But Judah said, "If you're ready to release Benjamin, we'll go. But if you're not, we aren't going." Their father Israel gave in. "But do this, stuff your packs with gifts, and pay back double what was returned to your sacks. And may the strong God give you grace in that man's eyes." The men took the gifts, double the money, and Benjamin. When Joseph saw that they had Benjamin with them, he told his servant, "Take these men, make them feel at home." But they became anxious, thinking, "He thinks we ran off with the money." So they went up to Joseph's servant and said, "We came down here one other time to buy food. On our way home, we opened our bags and found our money. We've brought it all back. We have no idea who put the money in our bags." The servant said, "Don't worry. Your God and the God of your father has blessed you." And he presented Simon to them. When Joseph got home, they presented him with the gifts. Joseph welcomed them and said, "And your old father whom you mentioned to me, how is he? Is he still alive?" They said, "Yes, your servant our father is quite well, very much alive." Then Joseph picked out his brother Benjamin. Deeply moved on seeing his brother, Joseph hurried out into another room and cried. Then he washed his face and said, "Let's eat." And so the brothers feasted with Joseph.
Genesis 44 to 45, Joseph and the famine, part 2.
Genesis 44 to 45. Joseph and the famine, part 2. Joseph ordered his servant, "Fill the men's bags with food and replace each one's money. Then put my chalice, my silver chalice, in the top of the bag of the youngest." They were barely out of the city when Joseph said to his servant, "Run after them. When you catch up with them, say, 'Why did you steal from me? This is the chalice my master drinks from.'" He caught up with them and repeated all this word for word. They said, "We would never do anything like that." The servants searched their bags, going from oldest to youngest. The chalice showed up in Benjamin's bag. They ripped their clothes in sadness and went back to the city. Joseph was still at home when his brothers got back. They threw themselves down on the ground in front of him. Joseph accused them. "How can you have done this?" Judah said, "What can we say, Master? We're all as guilty as the one with the chalice." "I'd never do that to you," said Joseph. "Only the one will be my slave. The rest of you are free to go back to your father." Judah came forward. He said, "You asked us, 'Do you have a father and a brother?' And we answered honestly, 'We have a father who is old and a younger brother. His brother is dead, and he is the only son left from that mother, and his father loves him more than anything.' Then you told us, 'Bring him down here so I can see him, or you won't be allowed to see me.' When we returned to our father, we told him everything. So when our father said, 'Go back and buy some more food,' we told him, 'We can't, not without our youngest brother.' Your servant, my father, told us, 'If you now go and take this one and something bad happens to him, you'll put my old gray grieving head in the grave for sure.' And now, can't you see that if I show up without the boy, this son he loves, he'll die on the spot? So let me stay here as your slave. Let the boy go back with his brothers. Oh, don't make me go back and watch my father die in grief." Joseph couldn't stand it any longer. He cried out to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father really still alive?" But his brothers were speechless. "Come closer to me. I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But don't feel badly. Don't blame yourselves for selling me. God was behind it. There has been a famine in the land now for 2 years. The famine will continue for 5 more years. God sent me on ahead to save your lives. So you see, it wasn't you who sent me here, but God. Hurry back to my father. Tell him, your son Joseph says, 'I'm master of all of Egypt. Come as fast as you can. I'll give you a place to live in Goshen, where you'll be close to me. I'll take care of you there completely.'" Then Joseph threw himself on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. He then kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Joseph's brothers left Egypt and went back to their father Jacob in Canaan. When they told him, "Joseph is still alive, and he's the ruler over the whole land of Egypt," he couldn't believe his ears. But the more they talked, the blood started to flow again. Their father Jacob's spirit revived. Israel said, "I've heard enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I've got to go and see him before I die."
Exodus 1 and 2. Moses is born. Joseph died, and all his brothers, but the children of Israel kept on having children. A new king came to power in Egypt who didn't know Joseph. He warned his people, "There are way too many of these Israelites. Let's devise a plan to contain them, because if there's a war, they might join our enemies, or just walk off and leave us." So they put them to work. They built cities for Pharaoh, but the harder the Egyptians worked them, the more children the Israelites had. Children everywhere. The Egyptians got so they couldn't stand the Israelites and treated them worse than ever. The king of Egypt had a talk with the 2 Hebrew midwives. He said, "When the Hebrew women deliver a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live." But the midwives respected God and didn't do what the king of Egypt ordered. The king of Egypt called in the midwives. "Why didn't you obey my orders?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "The Hebrew women have their babies before the midwife can get there." God was pleased with the midwives, and God gave them families of their own. So Pharaoh commanded all his people, "Every boy that is born, drown him in the Nile, but let the girls live." A man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman. The woman had a son. She saw there was something special about him and hid him for 3 months. When she couldn't hide him any longer, she got a little basket boat, placed the child in it, and set it afloat in the reeds at the edge of the Nile. The baby's older sister watched from a distance to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the Nile to bathe. She saw the basket boat, opened it, and saw the child, a baby crying. She said, "This must be one of the Hebrew babies." Then his sister ran up. "Do you want me to get a nursing mother from the Hebrews for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said, "Yes." The girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter told her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me. I'll pay you." After the child was weaned, she presented him to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. She named him Moses, which means pulled out, saying, "I pulled him out of the water."
Exodus 3 to 4, Moses and the burning bush.
Exodus 3 to 4. Moses and the burning bush. Moses was shepherding and came to the mountain of God, Horeb. The angel of God appeared to him in flames of fire, blazing out of the middle of a bush. The bush was blazing away, but it didn't burn up. Moses said, "What's going on here? Why doesn't the bush burn up?" God called to him from out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." He said, "Yes, I'm right here." God said, "Remove your sandals from your feet. You're standing on holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." God said, "I've heard the cries of my people in Egypt, and now I have come to get them and bring them to a good land. I've seen for myself how cruelly they're being treated by the Egyptians. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the people of Israel, out of Egypt." Moses answered God, "What makes you think that I could ever lead the children of Israel out of Egypt?" "I'll be with you," God said. Then Moses said to God, "Suppose I go to the people of Israel and I tell them, 'The God of your father sent me to you.' And they ask me, 'What is his name?' God said to Moses, 'I am who I am.' Tell the people of Israel, I am sent me to you. Now gather the leaders of Israel. Tell them everything I've told you. Then you and the leaders of Israel will go to the king of Egypt and say to him, Let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness where we will worship God, our God. The king of Egypt won't let you go easily, so I'll step in with my miracles. Moses objected. They won't trust me. They won't listen to a word I say. So God said, What's that in your hand? A staff? Throw it on the ground. He threw it. It became a snake. God said to Moses, Reach out and grab it by the tail. He reached out and grabbed it, and he was holding his staff again. God then said, Put your hand inside your shirt. He slipped his hand under his shirt, then took it out. The skin of his hand had turned sick. He said, Put your hand back under your shirt. He did it, then took it back out, as healthy as before. If they aren't convinced by the first and second sign, take some water out of the Nile and pour it out on the dry land. The Nile water will turn to blood when it hits the ground. Moses raised another objection to God. Master, please, I don't talk well. I stutter. God said, And who do you think made the human mouth? Isn't it I, God? I'll be right there to teach you what to say. He said, Oh, Master, please, send somebody else. God got angry with Moses. Don't you have a brother, Aaron the Levite? He speaks very well. You'll speak to him and tell him what to say. I'll be right there with you both, teaching you step by step. Now, take this staff in your hand. You'll use it to do the signs. So Moses returned to Egypt.
Exodus 7 through 10. The plagues. God told Moses, I am going to fill Egypt with miracles, but Pharaoh is not going to listen to you. Take your staff and throw it down in front of Pharaoh. It will turn into a snake. Moses and Aaron did what God commanded, and the staff turned into a snake. Pharaoh called in his magicians, who did the same thing. But then Aaron's staff swallowed their staffs, yet Pharaoh wouldn't listen to them. God said to Moses, Go say to Pharaoh, God, the God of the Hebrews, says, Release my people so that they can worship me in the wilderness. I am going to take this staff that I'm holding and strike this Nile River water. The water will turn to blood. Aaron raised his staff and hit the water in the Nile. All the water in the Nile turned into blood.